welcome back to The Explainer. I am incredibly excited to dive into today's topic with all of you. So let's jump right in. Today, we're exploring a truly profound and touching narrative called The Clockmaker's Promise. It's centered around a 72-year-old clockmaker named Elias Carter from the quiet little town of Willowbridge. Now, on the surface, you might think this is just a story about fixing old clocks. But as we unpack the source material today, you're going to see that it's actually this masterful blueprint for how we heal, how we find our purpose, and ultimately, the incredible legacy we leave behind. To really understand Elias, we have to start right here. Time is the most valuable gift we can ever give someone. These words were actually spoken by Elias's late wife, Anna, about 40 years ago on their wedding day, right when she gave him a simple pocket watch. Now, this wasn't just a romantic gesture. For Elias, it became the entire philosophical foundation for his lifelong dedication to his craft. You know, these words just stuck with him forever, literally shaping how he interacted with the world and every single person who walked through his shop door.
So that brings us to Section 1, the Clockmaker's Gift. Picture this scene for a second. You have this tiny clock shop with a faded wooden sign hanging out front that reads, Elias Carter, Clockmaker, since 1978. Every single morning, usually before the sun is even fully up, Elias unlocks that old oak door. And as soon as he walks in, he's greeted by the sound of hundreds of ticking clocks. Tick, tick, tick. It's such a permanent fixture in the community that the townspeople actually joke that if all of Elias's clocks were to stop, the whole town of Willowbridge would just completely forget what time it was. But honestly, his motivation goes way, way deeper than just keeping the town on schedule. See, after his wife Anna passed away, Elias didn't keep fixing clocks because he needed the money. He was really operating on two distinct levels here. On one side, you have the mechanical repair, right? The tangible, physical act of fixing springs, aligning gears, replacing hands on a dial. But on the flip side, you have emotional repair. Elias kept at his work because every single time he brought a clock back to life, it served as this powerful physical reminder that broken things can work again. Yes, he was fixing machines, but he was also slowly mending his own spirit. Let's move on to Section 2, the broken watch. Okay, so picture a rainy afternoon. The shop door opens. On one side of the counter, you have Elias, a man with 50 years of lived experience and deep wisdom in repairing things. And on the other side stands Noah. He's just a 16-year-old boy. He walks in completely soaked from the rain, carrying this worn-out backpack, and his eyes, they hold a kind of sadness that goes way beyond his 16 years. He carefully places an old, broken wristwatch on the counter. It's this incredible collision of two completely different worlds and stages of life. Elias examines the watch, but because his emotional intelligence is just off the charts, he sees right through to the boy's core. He looks right at Noah and says, the watch isn't the only thing that's broken. He goes on to explain that over his half-century in the shop, he's learned that people don't just come in for mechanical fixes. They come because they need hope. And man, he hit the nail on the head. Noah finally breaks down and admits that he recently lost his father. The watch actually belonged to him, and it stopped working the exact day he died. Since then, Noah's dreams, his interest in school, his entire sense of meaning, it had all just vanished. He thought that if he could just get this watch ticking again, maybe, just maybe, he could feel close to his dad. Elias, understanding perfectly, just gives a nod and says, leave it with me. Which leads us right into Section 3, Repairing Today.
So, the very next morning, Noah shows up, eager to get the watch. But it's not ready. Instead, Elias does something unexpected. He hands the kid a tiny screwdriver and asks him to help repair an old wall clock. Step 1, for hours, Noah just sits there watching gears turn and springs unwind. Step 2, when he inevitably makes a mistake, Elias doesn't scold him. No way. He just smiles and says, again, basically teaching him patience in real time. Day after day, this becomes the routine. The watch remains unfinished, but step 3 kicks in. Noah is visibly changing. He starts laughing again. He starts studying and hanging out with friends. And eventually step 4, this quiet, grieving kid becomes confident enough to actually start helping customers out front. Elias literally uses a tiny screwdriver and a wall clock as a masterclass in emotional regulation. The overarching lesson Elias is teaching Noah during all these months boils down to one simple phrase: you repair today. Elias was showing Noah that every complicated machine is really just a bunch of small parts working together. And life, well, life is no different. You don't repair a shattered, overwhelming future all at once. That's just too much. Instead, you rebuild your life day by day, piece by piece. You just focus on the gear right in front of you. You repair today. Eventually, after weeks turn into months, Noah is doing great.
He's confident, he's healing, he's re-engaged with life, and he finally turns to Elias and asks the big question. When will my father's watch be ready? And wow, here is the emotional twist of the story. Elias just smiles warmly and replies, "It's been ready for 3 weeks." Noah is totally stunned, right? He asks, "Well, why didn't you just give it back to me?" Elias's answer is absolutely profound. He says, "Because you weren't the one who needed repairing first." Elias deliberately held on to that finished physical watch because he knew the emotional repair inside Noah was still a work in progress. Hearing this, Noah looks down, tears filling his eyes, and for the very first time since losing his father, he smiles through those tears. The true repair was complete.
Let's look at Section 4, Passing the Time.
Fast forward about a year, the old clockmaker gets sick. His hands, which used to be steady enough to repair the tiniest, most delicate little gears, begin to tremble. One evening, he calls Noah over and hands him the keys to the shop, telling him it's time. Now, Noah is understandably resistant to losing another father figure, right? He shakes his head and tells Elias he can't replace him. But Elias responds so gently, saying, "You don't have to replace me. You only have to continue what matters." It's just this incredibly heavy, yet empowering moment of passing the torch. Tragically, just a few days after passing those keys, Elias peacefully passes away. But his impact on Willowbridge is undeniable. Literally, the entire town attends his funeral. And the most striking detail from the source material, among the flowers stood hundreds of ticking clocks. Every single one of them had been repaired by Elias. It's such a stunning visual of a life spent putting broken things back together, surrounded by the very timepieces he gave a second life to.
This brings us to our final part, Section 5, A Lasting Promise.
Months later, the shop reopens, but the sign out front has been updated. It now proudly reads, "Carter and Noah Clock Repair." Noah isn't just in there fixing clocks. He has officially become the new steward of hope in the town. People come in to fix their clocks, sure, but they also stay to share their stories. The text highlights this beautiful moment where a frightened little girl comes in holding her grandfather's broken alarm clock. Noah smiles at her exactly the way Elias once smiled at him and says, of course he can fix it. As he opens the back of the clock, he realizes something huge. He isn't just repairing gears anymore. He is continuing a promise.
So, looking back at this entire journey, what are the key takeaways for us? First, patience heals hearts. Just like it takes time to fix a complex clock, it takes time to process and heal from grief. Second, kindness restores hope. It was Elias's gentle, steady guidance that really saved Noah. Third, take life one day at a time. Remember that core philosophy, you repair today. And finally, the overarching theme of it all, broken things can work again. Whether we're talking about a tiny brass gear, a pocket watch, or a human spirit, absolutely nothing is beyond repair if given the right attention.
It's amazing to trace this legacy through the years, starting way back in 1978 when Elias first opened those doors, to year 1 when Noah stumbled in with his broken watch, to year 2 when Elias passed on the keys, and even years later, as Willowbridge inevitably changes, as shiny new buildings pop up and technology replaces old traditions, that little clock shop remains. Every morning, that familiar tick-tick-tick echoes through the room. The shop is famous now, not just because of the clocks, but because every person who walks in leaves believing that they have another chance to start again. The fundamental promise never fades.
And that wraps up our explainer for today. But before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final thought. Think about your own life, your own challenges, maybe even your own complicated future. Don't overwhelm yourself trying to fix it all at once. Just ask yourself, what are you going to repair today? Thank you so much for joining me to explore this wonderful story, and I'll catch you in the next one.